Hi, so today what we're going to do is use a definition setup in Grasshopper to generate some custom toolpaths for people who want to take on that challenge in working with Rhinocam on their Surface project. So here we have your watertight solid that we were working with, but for this particular Grasshopper definition we're going to need a surface. So the first thing that you can do is extract this surface right here, right, and just click on the top. So now we have separated the top surface from the rest of the solid. Next thing we're going to do is just type Grasshopper. Whoops. And we're going to pull up, oops, this definition, which you'll find a link on the blog. It's called Design Reform Custom Toolpaths. If you'd like to know how to build this yourself, you can go to the Design Reform website and they'll walk you through it. But I know we haven't done any Grasshopper yet, so this is actually kind of a deep dive into the software. That said, the definition is already set up for you, so all you really have to do is set your surface and then play around with the sliders a little bit. That being said, I'll give you a really brief introduction. So these are all the various components in Grasshopper that do a whole bunch of things that we'll talk about mostly later in the semester. And then these little guys here are parameters. In particular, this is your surface. So it should be bright red when you open up this definition because it doesn't have a surface attached to it. And if you hover over it, you'll see that it says null. It doesn't have a locally defined value. It has this orange bubble, which means it's not happy. It doesn't have what it needs. Then you see the note that I left for you here that says make sure you have a surface and not a polysurface. So once you've extracted that surface from your polysurface, you can right click here and set one surface. Okay, so then you're going to set your surface. Now it's not orange anymore. So if you in Rhino is where we have our geometry, right? When we go into Grasshopper, when these components and parameters are a light gray, we're looking at them. We can see them on the screen. And then when they're a dark gray, the preview is turned off. So meaning we're no longer looking at that geometry there. Okay, so let's take a quick tour under here. So what we're looking at is that we're setting the toolpaths based on our bit diameter. We're working with the 1/4 inch bit as we were for the last project. And then you can slide this along and play around with some of these sliders over here that we've set up. If anything turns red, like you see here, so probably it's not happy with the parameters that you've set, so you want to take that back down a little bit till the red turns off. Oh, we'll start over. Okay. So the other place to go is at the very end. These are the curves that you're going to be extracting. So right now it's a dark gray, which means it's turned off. I'm going to turn that on so that I can see the curves. And what you can see here is that unlike, if we go to the top view, unlike in Rhinocam where it sets the parallel toolpaths that are just default going back and forth across your surface, here the surface, the toolpaths are actually responding to the different directions that your surface is going. So as it goes up, the toolpaths move out. As it goes down, the toolpaths move in. So what you can see here, if we look at it from above, and these toolpaths are sitting right on the surface of your piece. So as you bring it in, they get more dense. Come down here, they get a little further apart. You can see these are causing the undulations to shift because it's changing the way that the curves are responding to the surface. And then the other place that you can fool around with is over here. This is called a graph mapper. And it just magnifies the different patterns based on geometrical, mathematical progressions. So here you can play around with these and start to see what can happen to your patterning. You can fool around with the little buttons there. You can also right-click, go in and go down to graph types and see if any of these others do something that's interesting for you. So if I choose this one, it gets these very interlaced patterns. Right, I can start to play around with that. If I right click again, go to a sine curve, and play around with where it sits on the surface. So these are just some things to have some fun with. And then the last thing that you're going to do when you get something that you're interested in is you're going to come over here, and bringing the geometries from Grasshopper into Rhino is called baking them. So what you're going to do is you're going to right click on this component right in the middle, and you're going to click on bake. Then you're going to say yes please, you want to group them so that they come into Rhino as a group. And we're going to actually put these on the layer named region, where we're putting our curves. We're going to say OK. And then if we unpreview this, we go into the region and turn off our surface layer, what we can see is these are now curves, and they're really in Rhino. So now we can go in and you can use the next video to set these as regions and engrave them.